Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 427 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book came out around Christmas time. It's called Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble if you haven't picked it up yet. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food in order to bring together fraternity and sorority leaders. Fun fact, I just came back from 4 fraternity and sorority conferences last month, and one of the reasons why I love going is to meet students from all over the country. I like asking them what they're struggling with in their chapter or their council, and I like to give them answers on how we can help them. I also like meeting professional speakers at the event too, because some of them have incredible new ideas and presentations that I think our clients would really enjoy. And our next guest is one of those professionals that I met in Atlanta. Our next guest is Derrick Scott II. He is a mentor, a keynote and public speaker. He's also a finance strategy and transformation consultant. Derrick is an accomplished, collaborative, and result-driven leader. He's got over 7 years of experience in strategic planning and management consulting. He assists institutions by integrating products to enable enterprise growth. He possesses the ability to thrive in a fast-paced working environment. He applies his analytical thinking, industry best practices, and he's very good in terms of adapting to ambiguity, leverages his technical and financial expertise, and able to deliver dynamic recommendations as well as presentations for all of his clients. Welcome to the show, Derrick.
Thank you, Michael, for having me, man. It's a pleasure and an honor, and I'm looking forward to our convo, man.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I knew right away, as soon as I met you in Atlanta, I'm like, yep, he knows all of the best speakers at Greek University, and
Yeah.
he is sharp. He is out there meeting students, and I know your message is going to resonate with our audience. So thank you for being on the show.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. So let's talk a little bit about your undergraduate experience, because you decided on Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. I'm
Yep.
sure you had many choices in terms of your undergraduate experience. Why did you decide on Florida State?
Michael, I wish I had a polished answer like it was their business program. But transparently, my cousin Ralph, he was a diehard Florida State Seminole growing up. The majority of my family were, they were Gators. And so I wanted nothing more than to be like Ralph when I was growing up, right? So that was the genesis of it. But when I snuck onto a high school field trip to Florida State University, that's how bad I wanted to, attend the university. I snuck on a field trip from Jacksonville, Florida to Tallahassee, about a 2-hour drive. I instantly fell in love with the campus, right? And that's cliche, a lot of people say it, but for me, it was, the Hogwarts, tall castle-like buildings, right? Red brick everywhere, luscious green fields like the students are just lounging on, like Landis Green, like in the heart of the campus. But then I also saw that every restaurant, every gas station, every grocery store was filled with Florida State paraphernalia. And that was something that I hadn't experienced, right, until I went to Tallahassee. Jacksonville universities are similar, but it didn't feel like the community was built around the university. It felt, the opposite way. But the core of it, because I got back home and I was like, all right, that was a cool field trip. But when I got back, a teacher by the name of Miss Aaron, right? She had a conversation with me. She was like, hey, you're first gen. I know your mom doesn't know the ins and outs of applying to college because you're first gen. You're probably trying to figure out how you're going to pay for this stuff. And I was like, yeah, that was a nice field trip, but now reality is setting back in. And she let me know about the Summer Bridge program at Florida State University. And that was really ultimately why I joined. It's a program underneath the Center for Academic Retention and Enhancement that helps first gen and socioeconomic disadvantaged students gain access to their education. So when I saw Florida State had a program just for individuals like me to birth the idea of something new, I wanted to chase that. And so that's ultimately why I chose Florida State. The right resources, connections, beautiful campus, great community, and a blueprint on how to be successful if you're first gen.
I'd say that's a very polished answer. For somebody who doesn't have a polished answer, I'd say that's very detailed, all right?
I've thought about it a lot, man.
Listen, it's a great institution, but I do like you talking about all of, the whatever it is, the infrastructure in Tallahassee that everybody's promoting Florida State. I think they all know that the students provide a huge amount of resources and revenue to the institution, so they're very
Right.
proud of it. And I love it when the local communities do that. And I think more local communities should really embrace their local institution
Right.
just as much as Florida State does. Because, the truth is, I live in Franklin, Tennessee, just
Okay.
outside of Nashville. I mean, we would give our right leg for a 4-year institution in Franklin, Tennessee. We don't have it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I get it.
So you got to celebrate it when that
When
happens.
you have it. Right. Right. I'd agree. I'd agree.
Yeah, so I really like that a lot. And also, you could have joined any organization at Florida State, but somehow you decided on Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, ice cold Iota-Delta Chapter as your home. So, what was special about the Brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha that made you want to join this organization?
Oh man, great question. So I grew up, I didn't have any brothers, right? It was my sister and I, and my mom, single parent household. And so when I got to college, it was like, okay, the idea of having a brotherhood was cool, but it wasn't something that I was like desperate for, right? So that summer program that I came into, the counselor or coordinator that was over the group of 25 of us, there were like probably 12 groups, each about 25 students. He was an alpha. And I just admired how organized he was, how dedicated he was to not only his studies, but also leadership. He was the MPHC president at the time on campus, but never really spoke about Alpha. He just led, right? He didn't lead with his letters. He just led as a person. I mean, I admired that. And the brothers of Iota Delta, I remember specifically Jeremy Shaw. I was going through my freshman year and he was like, hey, man, if you need food, if you need to pick, a ride after a party, if you need, clothes, right? An interview, right? You need a suit because you don't have one right now. Like, call me. I'm willing to help you, not because I want you to join this frat, but more so because you're a Black man at this institution. And I understand like being first gen and then also being a minority here at this vast university, it's kind of difficult to navigate. And I just want to make sure you're successful. So for me, Iota Delta first struck home because that true sense of like, let me help you as a brother. Let me help you as a, an African-American at this university. But then when I started to look at the leadership that they were displaying, you talk about first ever homecoming chief that was an African-American, Iota Delta. First president of the university that was an African-American, Iota Delta. The list goes on, treasurer, homecoming director, you name it, all Iota Delta. So rich lineage, excuse me. But then also they were doing it at that current time when I, came to the campus in 2012. So even though I resisted it for a long time, I sent up a prayer and I said, God, if this is what you want for me, let it be so. And so here we are, roughly 11 years later, one of the greatest decisions I made. I've added to the legacy and the lineage, but that's why I chose Alpha, because they at the core saw me as somebody that was in need of help in molding just as an individual, separate from the fraternity. And then once I joined the great house of Alpha, they continue to do just that.
I love that story. That's just amazing. And it's great that they were looking out for you as a first gen student, as a
Yeah.
Black man at Florida State, that you had people that were looking out clearly
Right,
to
right,
make sure
right.
that you were going to be successful and that you were going to stay, right?
Yep. Correct.
So I love that. And certainly, we love alphas at Greek University. Seems like we got a ton of alphas. I don't know how they, just
How we
rated
just
our
infiltrate the
roster.
system.
Yeah, the alphas like it here quite a bit. We got one Q that snuck in. I don't know how he got in,
Yeah,
but everybody else is not.
that's funny.
Yeah. So, all right. So I have to understand this too, because
What's
after
up?
graduation,
Mhm.
now all of a sudden you're serving as board president of the Florida State University Young Alumni Council. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's a big responsibility. Now you're planning and executing events for 115,000
Mhm.
recent alumni at Florida State. So, how do you go about getting this position and then executing all of these events for so many alumni?
I love it, man. Great question. So I graduated 2016. In 2017, the council was birthed, right? So I was a part of the inaugural class. I'm actually
Mhm.
still on the board right now. My term ends in July and I'll be off. So you talk about 7 years from start to finish. But becoming president, honestly, much like a lot of different areas of my life, now that I think about it, um, someone saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Hernisha Dukes was the second president of the Young Alumni Council, and she saw potential in me. She says, hey, Derrick, she gives me a phone call. I think that you can lead this thing when my term is done. But I would love for you to run with me as my vice president, right? And let me help mold you and shape you and pull out some of that potential that's hidden within you. And for me, I was like, all right, I mean, it's worth a try. I didn't know that it would last this long, 2 years vice president, 2 years president, 2 years immediate past. But regardless, that's how I became president. I watched Hernisha, she molded me, and I assumed the position. Now it's a blessing and a privilege to serve in that role, but it also is a challenge, to which I think you noted. It's 115,000. It's the largest alumni network base that Florida State University has, because each year, spring, fall, summer, right, people are graduating. And so what I did as president, and what I've continued to counsel the board to do, is making sure that you're listening to the voice of young alumni, right? Whether you're a leader in business, whether you're a speaker, whether you're, a volunteer, if you're not really tapped into your audience and understanding what their aspirations are, their goals, what they like and don't like, then you're holding events and programming for naught. You're developing a speaker program just based on what you think needs to be spoken about, not necessarily what your audience wants to hear. So that was the first thing we always did when we were planning events, is like, what do people want? Surveys, email requests, always trying to post the base. Then we looked at data. Are they showing up to our events? Are they not? Are they attending for the first 15 minutes during virtual and then logging off? And once we got a beautiful mix of that, we were able to really tailor our message and our events so that it was impacting. But for me, connections is crucial, right? Leveraging the connections that we had at a local level with our Seminole clubs, but then also at a national level with our other affinity networks that are agency and identity based. So Black alumni, veterans alumni, Pride alumni, and making sure that, since there's intersectionality amongst those who have graduated in the last 10 years, you might be a veteran and still young. You might be a woman and still young, et cetera, et cetera. How do we partner with the people that we still have in order to deliver the most impactful events? So very hard. Couldn't do it without my team, as cliche as it sounds. It's a very dynamic and, let's say, just very passionate group of people that serve on this board. And being president has been an honor, but they make the job easy.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And I love how it all started with somebody basically saying, I see something in you that you don't even see in
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
And getting you to step up that way. I think that's a critical lesson for the leaders that are listening to this podcast right now.
Agree.
You have to be able to tell other people that are in your organization that I see something in you that maybe you don't see in yourself. I see you as the next chapter president, in your
Right.
case, board president.
Mhm.
And you have to verbalize that in order for people to be able to see themselves in that role.
Would
And
agree.
sometimes they don't. I served as the executive director of my national fraternity. Like, no man in the world sees themselves as the executive director of their national fraternity. I mean,
No.
we have hundreds of thousands of brothers.
Right.
Why me?
Right.
Why am I so, qualified to do that role? Nobody actually sees themselves in that role. It's too big, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah.
but it wasn't until an alumnus said that to me that I sit up straighter in my chair and go, okay, now tell me why you think that.
Mhm.
Because I need to hear that in order to understand that I actually stand a chance to
Right.
get something like that.
Right.
But that's a really important lesson, I think. And also, you mentioned in there, you were talking a little bit about veterans. I really like that about Florida State. I know in the past, the IFC at Florida State
Mhm.
really eliminated any of the IFC dues
Mhm.
for a
Veterans.
student at Florida State who
Mhm.
is a veteran to
Yeah.
join the IFC fraternities. I know that
Right.
is something that they've done in the past. And I think that's absolutely incredible, because these veterans who go to Florida State, they have leadership skills coming out their ears. So
Correct.
could they be chapter president of a fraternity or a sorority at
Mhm.
Florida State after
Mhm.
serving in the military and running their own, whatever platoon? Yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah.
would say so.
Yeah. Maybe. Right.
But let's make it easier for them. Let's make that announcement and say, we want your leadership in our fraternities or sororities. Let's make it easy.
Yeah, a crucial part of leadership is just making sure that you're removing barriers for those who you're serving, right?
Yeah.
And so if it's for IFC to say, hey, let's remove the dues and so that you can become a part of this brotherhood,
Mhm.
and we're going to equip you with the resources and the blueprint so that you're successful, so be it. So I love that Florida State has done that, not only in the areas of, let's say, OFSL, but then also just in general.
Yeah.
Under President Thrasher, they really honed in on the veteran experience at Florida State University to make sure while you're on campus that, as many barriers are eliminated, but then also once you graduate, to which I mentioned at an earlier point, that you're connected with the right people to help you continue to matriculate, whether in your professional career or otherwise. Yep.
Yeah, they got it down to a science, helping students to become involved and stay. What can we do to anchor them at
Yep.
Florida State in terms of retention so they
Yeah.
don't walk out the door? I mean, if we're recruiting students and we're putting all this money into recruiting students, but then they're going out the back door and they don't actually graduate, then what good did we do? Right?
Yeah.
You got
I
to
agree.
graduate. Like that's the
That's the
goal.
key.
It's graduation. That's the key.
Yeah, I agree.
Unbelievable. I love all of this. This is great. You also work for GE Power. You work for Deloitte. I mean, these are
Mhm.
two incredible companies that many students who are listening right now, they would love to work for those organizations. Talk to us about your work responsibilities at these institutions.
Oh, lovely, man. So GE, I was a part of the financial management program.
Mhm.
So it's a 2-year rotational program where you hop around every 6 months, different manager, different, let's say, assignment. So you might go from supply chain finance to commercial finance, corporate HQ, you name it. The responsibilities every 6 months was very project focused and project based, which was kind of grooming me, I guess, for Deloitte and the consulting work that I do still to this day. But it was financial analysis. So maybe how do you improve quarter close? And making sure that as a financial institution for General Electric, you're looking at the amount of time it takes from when we close the books to when we report up to Wall Street. How can you reduce some of these manual processes and like optimize, for lack of better words, and cut out some of the repetitive things? Is there a way that you can save time so that people have more opportunity to really analyze the numbers and come up with insights instead of just trying to figure out how to make dirty data make sense, right? So that may be like one project. Another one may be when I was with supply chain finance, working directly on the plant at a site, at a facilities, and trying to figure out from a supply chain lens, is it a quality issue why the plant's costs are going up? All right. Are we breaking too many things and really having conversations with Michael, who may be the plant manager? Hey, are your contractors and hourly workers taking their time, or are they just rushing through jobs and thus breaking a lot of things and we're having to order more? Is it not quality and it's more so just that they're spending too much time working and thus driving the cost of a project up? So in totality, I think at GE, it was a lot of finance as the backbone, but then it was also just project based. And so what it taught me is, and it's a crucial lesson, I think, for students listening, for professionals listening, how to learn quickly. Getting in with whoever you call your subject matter expert or the individuals that are above you or in the hierarchy below you, right? Analyst to senior manager. There's opportunity to learn from anybody, no matter what their band is. And how do you learn quickly so that you can deliver quickly? So that was GE in a nutshell. A lot of finance work, but then project as well. Transitioning over to Deloitte, it was, again, project focused, but instead of so much finance, it was a lot more of strategic thinking and strategic thought. So you may work with a client of mine with CVS. How do we try to figure out the right financial system consolidated for CVS? Is it SAP? Is it Oracle? Is it, you name it, Salesforce? In order for them to consolidate their financials. And now that once we identify the right product and tool, can we sit side by side with Michael, who's an executive at CVS, and try to figure out, Michael, today, all of your reports look like X. How do you want them to look in the future? And what's the gap? Now we develop a plan to make sure that we're going from current state to future state and nothing's missed in between. If he wants the new report to have a big pie chart that's red and green, when we build it, it shouldn't be blue and yellow, right? If he wants it to show the variance between first month and last month, make sure that you're incorporating that. So it's a lot of just strategic planning and project management. Deloitte, project by project, it varies. My advice to students who want to let's say pursue a career in consulting is there's a lot of opportunities to do case study competitions at your universities. I didn't do it, but I know that looking back, it would have been beneficial to do so because there's always a case interview, interview at your big four institutions, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, PwC. Additionally, I would say is try to figure out ways to get involved in your college of business and figure out with your professors, are there any projects and things that they worked on? Because those also serves as case studies. I'm gonna try to pick their brain on like, what did you do well? What would you have done differently? What were the challenges, et cetera? Hindsight, that's kind of what I would have done. And then also just apply for internships. Every summer that you have available, internship. It's how I landed my job at GE. From freshman, sophomore, junior, I had an internship all 3 summers, and that kind of catapulted me to be able to be in a position to easily transition post-college.
Man, great advice from the mentor of mentors right there. Case studies and internships.
Yeah,
That's
man.
the key. That's the key to
Yeah.
being successful after college.
Right.
I love it. You also recently started Cardinal Wisdom Consulting. Tell our audience about this new venture and what types of activities do you want to be working on?
Oh man, beautiful question. So Cardinal Wisdom Consulting was birthed under the idea that knowledge is power, but wisdom works wonders. I started this around last year because I understood that I've been consulting for a while for Deloitte, but I always wanted to make sure that I could do it for myself. And the niche, let's say, area that we serve is not everyone can afford your Deloitte, your Ernst & Young, your Big Four. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So that small to middle market company who still is making great money, who has employees, they too need financial, operational, or leadership development, but they can't afford that big price line. So what Cardinal Wisdom does is form tailored solutions within finance, operations, or leadership to those institutions, middle, small market. So there's two sides of the house. One is consulting, which I just mentioned, and the other side of the house is speaking. So maybe your corporation, your college and university, or even your local organization needs some leadership developing, some corporate training, some motivational speaking. We do that as well. So those are the two sides of the umbrella. If you need us to help your institution make more money, cut costs, et cetera, we got it. But if you need us to inject inspiration, wisdom, and knowledge into your organization as well, we can do that.
I like it. You have a lot of great services. You could help just about anybody on a college campus.
Yeah, man, that's the
So, I
goal.
mean, you're wide open.
Yeah, man, that's the goal.
I love it. Now, let's talk a little bit about those presentations you mentioned, because recently at SGLA in Atlanta, you presented this presentation called Flip Your Fear. No Leader is Alone. FLIP, that's some acronym for something. How
Yeah.
do you overcome fear and unlock your leadership potential as a student?
Michael, I appreciate it. So, as you alluded to, it is an acronym that I shared with the students that were there. F is standing for facing your fears head on, right? It's the first step to unlocking your leadership potential, because once you confront your fears directly, you strip them of their power, and you're able to gain courage to move forward. So, identifying exactly what you're afraid of and then flipping your mindset, right? To where it's not, I'm afraid of public speaking. You might be afraid of stuttering and thus messing up, so that you're facing it. And then what I want you to do, still under F, is flip your mindset and say, okay, I'm not going to think about stuttering, but I'm going to think about, if I kill this presentation, what will be the result, right? The applause, the smiles, the great conversations afterwards. So that's F. It's facing it and then kind of flipping your mindset. L is learning. So how do you learn and gain resources that will help you be successful towards this venture of, whatever the fear is? So again, public speaking, maybe there's some Toastmaster opportunities that you have. Maybe there's a speakers bureau in your local town that you could, be a part of. Simple, implement. Every faith without work is dead. So you must make sure that even though you believe you can overcome this, how do you set those small baby step, activities so that you could start to develop a game plan? And then P, what I feel like is the most crucial, is persisting. Even though you have identified the issue, even though you face it directly, you've learned everything that you can do, sometimes life punches us in the face, right? Sometimes things don't go our way. And you must have the ability to press through that, even in the midst of adversity, even in the midst of failing, right? And then after you persist, make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people. So partnering, face it, learn how to overcome it, implement the steps to do so, persist, and partner with the tribe of people to put that battery in your back. So that's how I advise the students to overcome fear. And overall, Michael, I would say the last part of that is looking at fear as an opportunity and not an obstacle, right? It's not a hindrance. It should be a catalyst for growth. That overall flip mindset is kind of what I instilled, and the students loved it, man. It was a great, great time at SGLA.
I can see that, because after the program, I saw you having some really good one-on-one conversations with the students about their personal battles
All right.
with fear. There are so many fears that the students have.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, maybe one of them, just like you said, public speaking. I mean,
Right.
people are scared out of their mind to be public speakers. It's,
Crazy.
even worse than death. They would rather
Yep.
die than be
Get
on
on
a
the stage.
stage, right? And that's why you and I do so well.
Agreed, agreed.
So, what most surprised you about those conversations with the students about their personal battles with fear?
Yeah, I truly believe there's value in vulnerability, and the students showed that, right? Like, because I was vulnerable on stage and
Mm,
shared parts of me, they were able to see me as more human. They were able to connect with me more, and then the barrier of just I must be perfect, that shattered, right? Um, the conversations, they were impactful, but what surprised me also was the common trend, no matter the organization, the institution, whether that be Florida State, Georgia State, et cetera, their race, their gender, their identity. People are people, and a lot of us share the common fears: fear of being an inadequate leader, fear of social judgment, fear of failure, right? Fear of letting down your family because you're first gen, what have you. All of those students were coming up to me, and I saw a common thread. And so in the conversation that we had during the program, I talked about that this is a community, and instead of being afraid to speak up, you need to make sure that you're leaning in and letting those around you know that, hey, I'm struggling with this. I need a hand, right? Especially as a leader, right? That allows people to almost step up and support you, but then also see you as more human. So that's kind of what surprised me. And I was overwhelmed with joy. It felt great to have a student stop you in the middle, like, "Hey, Mr. Scott, Mr. Scott." I'm like, "It's just Derrick," but hey, Mr. Scott, I too lost my father when I was young, and that has been something that's weighed on me. Or, hey, Mr. Scott, like I failed a class too when I was in college, and I thought, hey, man, my college career is over. So just kind of seeing those stories and them being vulnerable to a stranger felt great.
I love it. And I love that you were being vulnerable with the audience. And that's what I noticed too. I just came back from AFLV West in Anaheim, California, and I'm always working on trying to figure out how do we make this presentation more interactive.
Right.
And in the beginning of the presentation, we were talking about alcohol and drug abuse prevention on
Mhm.
college campuses. And I was vulnerable with them. I said, listen, I said, my son is a freshman in college right now. My
Mhm.
daughter is a senior in high school, and she's choosing which college she wants to go to this fall right
Yep.
now. I said, I am scared out of my mind that my kids are not going to come home in one piece.
Right.
And like when I was vulnerable and I shared that with the audience about how scared I was, like suddenly they opened up and
Boom.
suddenly it was amazing to watch. But for the first 30 minutes of that program, I literally didn't even show not even one slide in my presentation. It was the students coming forth and basically saying, this is what I'm scared about on my campus. I had one IFC guy talking about mental health. What?
Yes. Yeah.
I had, I had another fraternity guy talking about the fact that there is a particular drug that is like rolling through his chapter, and he's genuinely scared because he just sees it coming like a tidal wave, and all of these guys are trying it, and they're all getting into this trend, and he's
Yeah.
scared out of his mind that someone's going to get hurt or somebody's going to get killed with this new quote unquote trend.
Right.
And so like they were throwing it all out there, and I was blown out of my mind. And there was a campus professional that was in the back of the room. She came up to me after the presentation and she said, Mike, I've never seen the students, just come out there with all of this sensitive stuff and start telling you their life story after you've known them for 5 minutes. I said, it was because I was vulnerable with them. They're just emulating what they're seeing from me.
Man. Michael, one more thing I'll add on that. In an age of perfectionism and highlight reels on
Yeah,
Instagram,
yeah.
most people are afraid of being vulnerable. And so you and I on stage doing that, it opens the door for them to be a mirror and reflect that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm glad that you did it. I did it in my speech. I freestyled. Like I just felt something come over. I was like, somebody needs to hear this story, right? About me losing my father and like, the fear of, am I going to measure up? I carry his name. I think I need to talk about this. Slide went off. I said, we don't need a slide right now. Let's
Don't need
just
it.
talk.
Yeah.
And the questions at the end, even though I'm sure a lot of the knowledge was great, the questions at the end were largely around that section because, as you mentioned, that was the most vulnerable. And now
Yeah.
people are starting to, wow, like I can trust this guy. Like I want him on my campus, or I need him to speak to someone. I need someone to hear the same message. So I'm glad you're able to do it at AFLV, man.
Ooh, it worked out nicely. And it was great to see. And certainly something I'm going to bring with me. People don't realize there's a lot of testing that happens up there on stage trying to figure
Yeah,
out what works and what doesn't work.
right.
And when I saw that work, I'm like, boom, I got it. Magic. Let's
Yeah.
go. Like I just hit on it and it just worked. And so, yeah, I'm going to carry that with me now going forward. You kind of talked about some of the struggles that you've been through in terms of like losing your dad. In the
Yeah.
past 7 months alone, you faced huge struggles, challenges, the loss of loved ones. You had an extended period where you were unemployed. You had moments of hopelessness. But through it all, you have remained committed to growth. So, how do you stay so committed to growth even when life hands you all of these obstacles that they're putting in front of you?
Simple answer, man. God. I am one, to borrow from Maverick City. God has consistently been my firm foundation. To date, I've had a track record of loss, but I've made it through each, and I can't find any other reason that that's happened, that I'm still standing, other than God. And so I know when I'm going through obstacles, that the pain that I'm going through will allow somebody to maybe find their purpose. The the losses that I'm incurring will help be a lesson to someone else. And so ultimately, I'm on this earth to be a vessel for God, right? Um, that's the simple of it, dude. Like it's not easy. I lost my granddad last year, as you mentioned. I was unemployed. I was laid off from Deloitte, part of the rifts that are happening all across this country. And then you think to yourself, what am I going to do next, right? Or how am I still going to have an impact? Am I worth it? Is my skill set worth it? Is my life worth it? Like there's so many questions of doubt. And so for anybody who's listening to this, the thing that kind of helped me was, don't doubt God. Don't doubt yourself. Doubt your doubts. There's a reason that you're here. Your experience has value. Your expertise is needed. And so there's a way that you can look at obstacles as opportunities. There's a way that you can look at adversity as an opportunity to add diversity to your experience, and thus make you a better leader, right? So please continue. If obstacles are coming, that means that you're on the right path. You're doing something right, right? If you're trying and not failing, then something's not adding up. Maybe you're not pushing hard enough, right? You learn more in your losses than you do in your wins. So that's the way that I push through, man. I just continuously keep my mind focused on God has me doing this for a reason. And even if I have a step back, I'm not staying there. I'm moving forward. This stepping stone was a stumbling block, but I have to keep moving forward.
I love it. And now I know why God scheduled this interview today, because I'm hearing your words and you're motivating me to continue going. Because if you think everything is all perfect, it's not.
It's
There are
not, dude.
stumbling blocks that happen all the time. You might see this podcast or see me on Instagram and be like, this guy's got it all
You got
together.
it all.
No, no, not at all. Come
Um,
see me on stage and you'll see I don't have it all together. I'm still learning, right?
right,
I'm still trying to figure this thing out. What works better? I'm constantly trying to improve. There are constantly things that I try that, on stage or what have you, that fail. Because I'm like, I don't know what's going to work here. I'm
yeah,
going to try it and see what happens. Sometimes it works wonderfully, and I'm like, oh, great. Sometimes, it bombs,
right,
and
right.
it
That
doesn't
didn't
hit.
hit.
It just doesn't hit. And so I have to take that L and learn from it and figure out what I'm going to do differently next time. So
Right.
that's happening all the time.
Daily. I don't care what field you're in, what industry you're in, it's gonna happen. And you can I told people in the program, I said, fear can last a lifetime or for a moment,
No,
right? You decide. You can be afraid to act, or you can just act.
right.
Day one, or one day.
I
It's all
love
the
it.
same kind of mindset.
I love it. I love it. Now, we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast.
Oh,
That's my weakness, is
yeah,
good food.
likewise.
And I know you like really good food too. So the next time I'm in Atlanta, which I get there all the time for conferences,
Yes.
speaking at the universities there locally, where should I go for a great meal?
Oh, I love it, man. Okay, so I'm vegan.
Yeah.
And I love vegan food, so I'm gonna put you on some good vegan food. All
All
right.
right.
If you want to sit down, you can go to Planta, like plant with an A, Planta or Planta Queen. They're the same company. Planta Queen is a sister, Asian fusion cuisine. Planta would be more so if you're like Americana type of cuisine, but still plant-based. On brunch on weekends, they have a great chicken and waffles, which obviously is prominent in the South. And it's chicken and waffles. You
Faux chicken.
yeah, faux chicken. That's one. Another great Black-owned vegan restaurant, Life Bistro. Life Bistro, amazing. And I'll give you two more. Let's see, Tassili's. It's like a kale wrap and salad spot. I know you probably think kale wrap. That's not going to fill me. Trust me, this thing is monstrous.
Nice.
It's huge. It will fill you up. Great place to eat. And then last, I would say Mammoth Vegan Kitchen. That's out Buford Highway. More of your Thai type of food, but great pineapple fried rice, still vegan. So yeah, Planta, either queen or regular. Life Bistro, great Black-owned. Tassili's, great Black-owned, or Mammoth Vegan.
I love that you're suggesting these vegan restaurants as well as Black-owned restaurants. We got to keep these guys in business. We got to keep them making money. So yeah, let's promote them, so they stay in business. I love it.
I like it.
And yeah, one of our other speakers, Brandy, she's also a vegan, and I was hanging out with her in California. And vegan restaurants out in California, I mean, they know how to do vegan. And a couple of shout outs. We were eating vegan food all weekend. I literally have had nothing but vegan the last 4 days.
Love it.
Yeah, they got a place out there in Anaheim called Vegan Pizza. Oh, the pizza was so good. You have no idea. Try the Thai chili pizza. I've never had anything like it, and it was absolutely fantastic. The cheese was great. You would never know that it's vegan. Never know. They even had vegan sausage on the pizza. You would never know that this was vegan. It was delicious. And then Saigon Vegan as well. Had just incredible food. I had a curry dish. Chicken curry dish with like faux chicken pieces in the chicken curry with white rice. It was so good. So yeah, I've been eating vegan like for the last 4 days, bro.
Hey man, if you like pizza, I got you one for a bonus. Plant-based pizzeria.
There you go.
Wonderful, great pizza, still vegan in Atlanta. Black-owned as well. Obviously, I shop Black-owned. I mean, February just happened. I was on a Black-owned shopping spree. But yeah, great pizza. I'm gonna have to check those two out when next time I'm in California, though.
Check it out the next time you're in California. You would really enjoy it. And then there was one more restaurant out there in Anaheim, California that was like over the top. This place was like a lounge. It was so good. And it was Madre. It was basically in Spanish. It was "Thank you, Mother." And this place was like a lounge out there in Anaheim. I've never seen such an upscale vegan place. Like it was a lounge with like the music in the background, dimly lit, all nice surroundings, and the food was absolutely delicious. So we had a great time there too. So anyway, we're just talking about vegan restaurants for 10 minutes now.
I'm starving. Okay.
Now I'm starving. Now I got to go get lunch. Now you made me hungry. All right. So if our student listeners, if they want to book you to speak on their college campus, where should they go to connect with you?
No problem. They can email me at info@thecardinalwisdom.com or visit my website. Again, thecardinalwisdom.com. They want to follow me on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram. It's at No Limit Speaking, because there's no limit what we can do when we speak. So No Limit Speaking, YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok. And again, info@thecardinalwisdom or thecardinalwisdom for the website. Thank you.
I love it. I'm going to follow you on TikTok right now so that way we can get connected there. No Limit Speaking. I'm going to go and check that out and check out all your TikToks, and I'm going to connect with you on Instagram as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for chatting with us today and sharing all of your wisdom. Now I can see why you're the best mentor in the business. Very obvious based on this conversation that you know how to advise college students. So, I mean, props to you. And what can I say? Thank you for just being on the show and sharing all of this. This has been an incredible interview. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me, and I look forward to staying in touch, man.
That sounds good, Derrick. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Derrick, I want you to like it on social media, and I want you to share it with other college students, so that way other college students, especially first-gen students, that they get to hear from Derrick, because Derrick knows what's up. So thank you to our listeners, and we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.